Welcome everyone to episode 102 of the Chris Parrish podcast breakdown. That's right. This is episode 102 breakdown. We're going to break down a little bit of the John Cena Last Time Is Now tournament. Going to break down what it means to me if Chris Jericho is to return to the WWE. But let's also break down the people who are responsible for helping out the Chris Parrish podcast. That's right, Turnbuckle Studios, the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, and Barricade YEG. If you want to go and check out all of the WWE major PLEs, all of the major AEW pay-per-views, or just check out a great place with great food, great atmosphere, and great games, go check out Barricade YEG, located at 10544 82nd Avenue in Edmonton, Alberta. And if you want to go and check out the Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program, please check out our website, turnbucklestudios.org, and you can have a lot of fun there, and we'll get to that in a minute. But if you also want to help support the Chris Parrish podcast, the best way to do that is going down to my link tree down below at Chris Parrish and liking and subscribing and sharing and rating all of the episodes, the pages, all of the accounts that are down there, especially the ones on Spotify. If you want to rate those episodes, if you want to, again, share, like, hit the notification bell buttons, all that stuff. The reasons why we ask is it just helps the channel. So please, if you can, do that. But let's get on with the show, shall we? That's what we're all here for. We all want to find out more about what I think. Actually, scratch that. Oh, does anybody really care what I think? I don't think anybody in my own household cares what I think. But nonetheless, if I was planning the Last Time Is Now tournament, what would I do? But before we get to that, let's talk about the rumors that are just swirling over the internet. And that is Chris Jericho possibly returning to the WWE. We haven't seen him on AEW, on any other broadcasting, anything for a while now. So it's led to believe that when his contract ends, and the rumors that his contract is going to end late in December in this year. So we could be looking at maybe a 2026 return, if there is a return. And let's just kind of sit back and look at what we're talking about when we talk about Chris Jericho. We're talking to somebody that started in professional wrestling in the 90s. I believe it was the 90s. Came into the scene in WCW in the mid-90s. Debuted in the WWE in 1999. Had one of the best visual debuts of all time with the WWF, as he was the countdown to the millennium. Had the iconic backwards Michael Jackson pose. That's right. Admits that he stole that pose from Michael Jackson. And ever since then, reestablished who he is. Became the first ever undisputed champion when he beat Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock in the same night. Has completely transformed what it's like for a lot of people. If you guys ever want to know how Chris Parrish came to be, well, Chris Jericho is largely responsible for the shaping of Chris Parrish. Now, I understand he is not what he used to be. He is well past the best days of his career. But Chris Jericho, in a nutshell, is still one of the best minds for the business, still does what's absolutely needed for the business, and is still an established living legend in this business that if he was to return to the WWE, just think of some moments that he could make, whether it's with more established names like a Seth Rollins, a Roman Reigns. But then also, let's look towards the new faces like a Grayson Waller and Ethan Page. Maybe, just maybe, a Dominic Mysterio. What a world we could live in if Chris Jericho, who not only feuded with Rey Mysterio in WCW, feuded with him in WWE, feuded with him in WWF. And now we get a moment with Chris Jericho and Dominic Mysterio. For the people who are my age, how crazy would that be? Now, I understand what a lot of fans think about Chris Jericho, especially the current Chris Jericho. And it's warranted. Everybody's allowed to have an opinion. But I think if we forget the contributions that he has given to professional wrestling, we are absolutely overlooking just everything the last 30 plus years. Because Chris Jericho, if it wasn't for Chris Jericho, a lot of people might not be able to be a fan of AEW today. Chris Jericho is largely responsible for being that big name attached to AEW as it came and started as a company. Because Chris Jericho at that time never put his name to something that wasn't considered legit. So when Chris Jericho became All Elite, there was just a little bit more looking at AEW in a legit standpoint. Now, was he the marquee talent? No, he was the marquee name. And that's because Chris Jericho in the wrestling business holds weight. So when you talk about Chris Jericho in 2026 returning to the WWE, you got to look at everything. You got to look at the name value. You got to look at the contribution aspect. You got to look about his ability to go into music and bring that aboard. His podcast, bring that aboard. You talk about what he's able to do in acting. You bring that aboard. You add that to the Netflix. You add that to the ESPN. You add that with everything that surrounds UFC and that merger that they've done. It's something that's insane. When you then look at where Chris Jericho is in his career, he's an easy first ballot Hall of Famer. You can look at all the historic feuds he's had over the years, whether you go from him interrupting The Rock to him making fun of Stephanie McMahon to him having countless run-ins with Triple H, making fun of William Regal peeing in his tea. Yeah, some of the funny moments. And then you look at what he did with Kenny Omega and how insane that match was, and the ratings alone that match had. Then you can look at what he did with MJF. You can look at him being the first ever inaugural AEW World Champion, and then seeing the arrival of Jon Moxley. Not even a guy that follows AEW on a weekly basis, but that moment was pretty damn cool. So you don't have to love Chris Jericho. You don't even have to like him. But respect what he's done to this business. And he's not going to go to WWE to make it a better company than where he was. It would be to end his career. It would be the place he goes to when he has said, hey, I left to do all the other things I wanted to do, and I did them pretty damn well. Coming back to WWE, a place that truly, in my eyes, made him the star that he is, the icon that he is. And it would be cool for me personally if I could hear Break the Walls Down live one more time. But I can tell you, I don't think he necessarily will use that if he was to return to WWE. You kind of have to look at it of, would he use Judas? Would he have a completely new song? All this does make sense in the same way that it makes sense he uses Break the Walls Down. So what perception, what image of Chris Jericho would we get if he was to sign with WWE? Who would Chris Jericho's last match be against if he returned to WWE? But the big question is, who would induct him in the Hall of Fame if he was to come back to WWE? Because you can be damn certain he's being inducted in the Hall of Fame. And one thing I could just say is that if it wasn't for Chris Jericho, I think a lot of people in Canada would have had a much harder time accepting what happened with Canadian wrestlers like Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and even Chris Benoit. Because when you think about what happened to all three of those individuals, Canada didn't have a lot of mainstream male representation when it came to professional wrestling. Chris Jericho fit that bill. And if it wasn't for Chris Jericho, being a Canadian wrestling fan and not having a Canadian to really cheer would be very difficult. So when it comes to Chris Jericho, when it comes to me being a WWE fan, I personally just think it makes sense that he returns. Because it's a company that he always wanted to work for. He has admitted that in his book. He has admitted that in interviews. But nobody's ever asked him the question, what company does he want to see his career end with? Because he's always dodged any type of question when it comes to retirement. But I think the real question is, does he truly think about that? And then does he really want to be in the Hall of Fame? Does the Hall of Fame actually matter to him? Maybe not the physical being inducted into a Hall of Fame that doesn't exist from a physical standpoint. Like there is no Hall of Fame building. But maybe he just wants to be acknowledged in the way for his career. And I don't know. Sometimes closure can really change people. I don't know if you'd want that, but I know as a wrestling fan, I would love to see him have it. CBS Entertainment coming in saying if Chris Jericho does get inducted, I could see him asking Lance Storm to be the one to induct him. 100%. But in the same light, I could see Stephanie McMahon. I could see Triple H. I can see Conan. I can see Rey Mysterio. Lance Storm is a great and probably the most accurate one. But we're talking about somebody that has wrestled for over 30 years on a main level. It's really easy to have a list. You see what I did there? That could induct Chris Jericho. So if you don't think Chris Jericho will return to WWE and be inducted in the Hall of Fame, you know what we do to those people? You know what? Yeah, you can see it that I'm saying you made the list, but we just tell you, you were wrong. Yeah, no copyright infringement here, folks. I don't have rights to those things, but I mean, just from a wrestling fan standpoint and somebody that was inspired by him as I went into the business and performed, Chris Jericho was always the guy who I never felt was the guy. He was always someone I thought was always fighting up. He was that always up and coming kind of a talent when I started watching him. And he was when I started watching WCW in late 97 and 98 when, he was just, listing his 1004 holds, armbar being every fourth or fifth, and then him getting lost in the arena as he's getting ready for his match against Goldberg. If I'd be very intrigued with how Chris Jericho would respond to a WWE return, because a lot of the things that we put towards Chris Jericho is that he likes to work with up and coming talent, which I think as a wrestling fan just validates the reason I started cheering for him. And it's why I would love to see Grayson Waller have the Grayson Waller effect. And he's bringing a surprise guest to his show. I would love it to be Chris Jericho, and I would love to see it blossom into a feud, or at least a small feud. Because then, and just hear me out, Grayson Waller can have the New Day, and maybe he picks an Austin or an Xavier Woods or Kofi Kingston. What better way to bring back Austin Theory? And then now, not only is Grayson Waller getting that big rub of working with somebody like Chris Jericho, but now is Austin Theory. So, yeah, I mean, do I think Chris Jericho is going to come back and win the world title a la CM Punk? No. I don't think he needs a title at all. But we're getting into that age or that time in WWE where if you don't have the right people to help other talent go from A to B, your development on a main level is lacking. That's why I think it's very important with WWE. They have the Randy Ortons. They have, for the time being, your AJ Styles. Now it's CM Punk. You have a lot of talent that could bridge the gap between the next guy and the already here guy. And I think that's very important. But where do we get the guys who can help transition the guys from being almost we don't have anything for you guy to you're on the show every week guy? We also need those types of talent as well. And I think Chris Jericho can be both, but I think he can easily do this one as well. And I would love to see what he's capable of doing, because there is a lot of people, whether it's in WWE, even the NXT world. I would love to see an interaction with Chris Jericho. So on that note, I will open up the forum to anybody with anything about Chris Jericho. But as I wait for those, I'm going to play a couple promotional videos for the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program. So let's start with our schedule, followed by our Redbubble advertisement. Lastly, if you want to help out and join Turnbuckle Studios, we got a video for that too. So sit back, enjoy, refill your drinks if you can, if you want. I'll see you back in just a minute or two.
Turnbuckle Studios and the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program bring you the week of streams. Monday nights you get the Locker Room Breakdown at 7 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Raw Patrol at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday brings you the flagship show, Turnbuckle Talk, at 8:05 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday we play games with the PlayStation Showcase at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thursday we go TNA when we brace for Impact at 7:55 p.m. Eastern. Friday we secure all details as we answer the call for the SmackDown security detail at 8 p.m. Eastern. The weekend brings you Saturday Night Gaming at 8 p.m. Eastern. On Sundays be sure to catch the Chris Parrish podcast at 12:15 p.m. Eastern, followed by the Boar's Nest at 8 p.m. Eastern. Be part of the shows and join the chat every day. The Turnbuckle Studios store is open for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Get the merch and represent the best from the shows you watch on a weekly basis. Multiple styles to choose from with over 10 products available. Don't get left out and pick up all your favorites today. Find us at carlcarafell.redbubble.com.
A Turnbuckle Affiliation program is looking for more people. If you have passion level for pro wrestling, sports, video games, or something else, then Turnbuckle Studios is the place to be. If you have ever wanted to pursue content creation and want to join our team, then we would love to have you. Check out turnbucklestudios.org or contact us by email today, because your future is now, and we want you to tap in.
On Saturday night's main event, we were introduced to the Last Time Is Now tournament, with John Cena having a 16-man tournament that will determine who his final opponent is on the final Saturday night's main event on December 13th. And we got 4 matches announced within this week, as the tournament does kick off tomorrow, which is crazy to think that tomorrow we are going to start to find out the final in-ring competitor for John Cena. What a world we're living in, where we are just shy of a month left with John Cena as an in-ring competitor. And the matches that were announced, we had 2 on Raw, 2 on SmackDown, and we got Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sheamus, along with Rusev versus Damian Priest. Those were the ones on Raw. On SmackDown, we found out that Jey Uso will go up against The Miz, and LA Knight will go up against a surprise individual. Now, John Cena did say in this video that we're going to see Raw, we're going to see SmackDown, we're going to see NXT, and then even people that don't even work here. And I know the speculation is wild when it comes to the people that don't work here. A lot of people want to say Edge could return. And I'm going to put out a theory about Edge right now. It was very much a talked topic that his contract ended this year. Whether or not there was any time added from injury is unknown. So it's truly an unknown of whether Adam Copeland is a free agent or not. Because if what we know was correct and there wasn't any added injury time, he should be a free agent. But if there was, obviously he wouldn't be. Now, a lot of people have speculated, well, what happens if WWE just makes a trade with AEW and allows Andrade to work there as long as they can have Adam Copeland for this? That's a theory. Unlikely, but it's a theory. But imagine this. And that is Adam Copeland in 2026 resigns with AEW. On the basis that Tony Khan doesn't put injury time on his contract, and from the time of that contract ended to December 31 of 2025, he's a free agent. And because of that, he could then partake in a John Cena thing, and only a John Cena related thing. And then after, when it's done, go back to AEW. In wrestling, it's all about timing. If it works in your favor and the opportunity is there, that's what everybody would want, right? I think every fan would want to see, if there is no newer upcoming superstar to face John Cena in that last match, I think one of the obvious nostalgic faces and names would be Adam Copeland, also known as Edge. I don't think it's likely in any way. I really don't feel we're going to see Adam Copeland or Edge in this tournament. But I do think we are going to get a couple surprises. But I took the time to jot down 16 individuals who I thought would be perfect to be in this Last Time Is Now tournament. So if you can indulge me, I will write down in order what I would do if I was in charge of booking the Last Time Is Now tournament. So allow me to break down to you my version. Now, I had I believe I had Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and some faces that don't work here. I just had a sheet that I don't know where I put. But my matches to start the tournament are, I had Jacob Fatu going up against Braun Breaker. I had Gunther going up against Obafemi. I had Trick Williams going up against Ilya Dragunov. I had Ludwig Kaiser going up against Matt Cardona. I had JD McDonough going up against Karrion Kross. I had Carmelo Hayes going up against Aleister Black. And the final two was Ethan Page going up against Joe Hendry and Dominic Mysterio going up against Bo Dallas. The reasons why I picked some of these people were clear. A lot of them have never worked John Cena one-on-ones match. Some had a small history with him. Some people had an indirect history with him. For the likes of Braun Breaker and Jacob Fatu, they're just faces in the WWE that in the next 5-10 years, you know they're going to be very heavily featured. Same with Gunther and Obafemi, and even Dragunov and Trick Williams. And Trick Williams can really use a catapult like a John Cena to introduce him onto the main roster. We could say the same for Dominic Mysterio, and we could say the same for Carmelo Hayes. But for the likes of Aleister Black, I think it's something that could really put him into the main event spot. We just saw him face Cody Rhodes on SmackDown. So it lines up to the trajectory, but I can also understand the retort of maybe he doesn't need it because it seems to be going that way anyway. And then we have JD McDonough, Ethan Page, and Joe Hendry, Karrion Kross. And yes, this could be something for Karrion Kross to really sink his teeth into and be featured quite heavily in the next month. And then for somebody like Joe Hendry, it goes without saying, he's been balloting for this match for a few years now. It seems like his contract is expiring with TNA, and it's very much assumed that he is going to jump to the WWE, whether it's NXT or a Raw and SmackDown. Ethan Page, I think, is just doing some of his best work. And I feel right now, he's officially a big fish in a small pond in NXT. And I think it's just a matter of time that he jumps to a Raw or SmackDown, as we saw him in the corner of Chelsea Green on Friday, where she won her United States Championship back from Julia. And then JD McDonough, I just think of the world of the talent that he has, and I think we're starting to see a little bit more prominence with him. He did have a match and a victory against Sheamus, and then even this past Monday, Wade Barrett openly sung the praises of JD McDonough to the point where JD McDonough was even mentioned by CM Punk in that opening promo, saying that he would love to get in the ring with JD McDonough over the World Heavyweight title. So when those are cases put out, you have to take notice. And then obviously for anybody, I hope you guys took notice when I said the name Bo Dallas. It's completely no shock that Bo Dallas's brother Bray and John Cena had a very, very storied history with each other. And with the Wyatt Six being a current thing in WWE, it wouldn't shock me in the least to see John Cena and Bo Dallas reconnect. And it's almost like you would have Bray Wyatt kind of looking down and looking at not just what John Cena's and what he's done, but also looking at his brother and seeing what he's done. And then when you put those two together, and if that could be a last match just how fitting it would be. I don't think it's likely, but I definitely have room in my heart to see Bo Dallas and John Cena. Now, those were the class of 16. I break that down, and I have Jacob Fatu defeating Braun Breaker. I have Gunther defeating Obafemi, Ilya Dragunov defeating Trick Williams, and Bo Dallas defeating Dominic Mysterio. And the reason for that, I would have Dom versus Cena at Survivor Series. That way, you don't have to worry about Dom being in that match in December. I had Matt Cardona beating Ludwig Kaiser, Karrion Kross defeating JD McDonough, Joe Hendry defeating Ethan Page, and Carmelo Hayes beating Aleister Black. That takes me to my final 8. And I had Jacob Fatu versus Karrion Kross. I had Gunther versus Ilya Dragunov. Bo Dallas versus Joe Hendry. Matt Cardona versus Carmelo Hayes. Now, the reason why I think these are 4 great matchups is because obviously with Gunther and Dragunov, if you know what they did in NXT UK, then you know the magic they can do. Also, I don't have any plans for Gunther winning this tournament. And I think Dragunov is a believable opponent who can beat Gunther. So yes, I did have specific spots in this match where I have it okay if guys beat this guy. Like with Braun Breaker, I don't think anybody's going to lose sleep if Jacob Fatu defeated Braun Breaker. If Jacob Fatu was the reason Braun Breaker couldn't advance, I don't think people would be upset by it. And it's the same way with Obafemi. If you lose to Gunther, I think that's okay. He just lost to a 2-time world heavyweight champion. I think that's okay. And it's the same thing of why I have Jacob Fatu versus Karrion Kross. You have a way where you can take out Jacob Fatu in a situation, and you're not going to be completely upset by it because Karrion Kross is no joke, and he is somebody that the fans want. So you're not in deep waters if you're doing this. So that I had Karrion Kross advance to the semifinals alongside Ilya Dragunov. And when it comes to Matt Cardona and Carmelo Hayes, I just think it's a complete fresh match. But I do have Carmelo Hayes taking the win here. And because of that, we now had Carmelo Hayes defeat Aleister Black, and Matt Cardona in his first 2, he is beating strong competition and getting more traction as he advances. And then, yes, I had Joe Hendry defeat Bo Dallas. And I think if you play the story right, Joe Hendry defeating Bo Dallas allows you to believe that much more and be on the side of Joe Hendry as he goes through this tournament, because I would like people to really understand that this tournament's a journey for the individuals competing. And if you're going to introduce somebody like Joe Hendry into this, having him defeat a guy like Ethan Page, who is from his past, then a Bo Dallas, who isn't from his past, but allows you to get over that potential emotional hurdle in this match. then yeah, I think you're now looking at it as okay, there is some stock with Joe Hendry in this tournament. And that allows me to have Joe Hendry versus Carmelo Hayes as a semifinal match with Ilya Dragunov against Karrion Kross. And again, this would be a time where Karrion Kross defeating Ilya Dragunov based on all these matches. It makes sense. You can do it. You can do it in a well-timed manner. And you can remove Ilya Dragunov from this tournament and be completely okay with it, because as you've seen the journey that Ilya Dragunov has gone on, you won't bat an eye of who he was able to defeat and what he was able to do, because it's just impressive, and you know you got a star on the rise. And with Karrion Kross, you do understand that he can do something. He will become a person in WWE, and now that there's belief in the character, you're rooting for him, and now you want to see what he does next. And obviously with Joe Hendry, you're doing a similar thing, and then now you have Joe Hendry and Karrion Kross in the finals, and it's a completely fresh match. It's a new opportunity for two people who that's all they need. You're introducing one person to the main event or that upper mid card of the company while bringing back a old flame that really never burnt out. You just didn't have the flame in the right spot. And I think that's something that you would absolutely just have a wonderful time with Joe Hendry versus Karrion Kross. And obviously, if you're going to go all the way to the finals with Joe Hendry, you might as well make the match with Joe Hendry and John Cena. However, I would not hate if this was the time you decided to completely fool the audience and go with a Karrion Kross to win this tournament and defeat John Cena in his last match. Then what are we talking about with Karrion Kross if that was to happen? I would also be hard to reminisce on the fact that what we were able to get also in this tournament is a bunch of fresh matchups. And now what we were able to get is a great way to not only introduce new people to new viewers, you're able to fool the audience, because how many people have not only Karrion Kross in this tournament, how many people think Bo Dallas has a legit shot of being in this tournament? I just think it's something that you could really have some fun with if you decided to kind of change the direction just a little bit. I'm not saying completely steer away, but in my eyes, do we really want to see John Cena versus Shinsuke Nakamura, Rusev, or Sheamus, or even Damian Priest? So the way I look at it, if you answer no to those, why even put them in the tournament? I feel anybody in this tournament, you should want that John Cena match with. Do we really want to see Jey Uso and The Miz at all? Do we really want to see either one of those two face John Cena? The worst part is we have LA Knight against a surprise opponent. And more people are going to want the surprise opponent. And you're doing this just mere weeks after not having LA Knight involved in the World Heavyweight title picture when it was vacated by Seth Rollins. So I ask, what are we doing? What are we doing with LA Knight? Because I can't fathom seeing him win against a surprise. So unless we're truly going to the whole like a true heel turn with LA Knight because he just feels he's been kicked and kicked and kicked and he's tired of being kicked. I don't know, like something has to give. And that's just my opinion when it comes to LA Knight, but we'll see. Let me know what you guys think of the breakdown of what I would do for John Cena Last Time Is Now tournament. I'd be very interested who you guys think not only could be in this tournament, but who would your guys' prediction be to win? Let me know in the comments. As till then, I'm going to let you guys in on next week's episode. And that would be episode 103, Ready for War. As you understand, next week is going to be the 16th of November, and we're just inching closer to Survivor Series War Games. So as WWE prepares for War Games, are we ready for war? So breaking down what I think of a return for Chris Jericho, what I would do for a Last Time Is Now tournament, I think these are two big stories going in with the WWE right now, and there's so much more we could talk about. We could break down the tag team division. We could break down what's next for the women's world or women's title on SmackDown there. Jade Cargill, now your new women's champion. We could break down what's next for her and that title, as it seems like there's a shift in direction there. But maybe, just maybe, this is a time to do it at a different time. Because the best part about breaking down is you can do it whenever. You can do it as many times as you want, but you don't have to do everything all at once. And for that, I am going to let everybody in on this. I do plan on doing this again sometime soon. I've done it in ways before because it's fun. As wrestling fans, we always fantasy book. We always do the what if game. But perhaps on the Chris Parrish podcast, we make it not a theme, but a thing where every once in a while, we just have to break it down. This has been episode 102 of the Chris Parrish podcast breakdown. I just want to say thank you to every single one of you for helping me not only get to 102, but to get to 103 and be motivated to do 104, 105, and all the episodes coming. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope that you can look in the mirror and be yourself, be happy, be healthy, because at the end of the day, you matter. I'll see you next week.
Yeah.